attracted to the city because of the garbage, and even they're breeding in Nairobi anyway.
You are listening to Urban Wildlife Podcast.
Hi, podcast listeners. We've got a bit of a special episode today. Tony and Angie just got back from their honeymoon in Africa, and so we've got an interview that they did with their guide, Dominic, about urban wildlife in Kenya. Their conversation about urban wildlife in Kenya will be part 1 of this episode. Then we've got sort of a bonus part 2. Dominic is Maasai, and so they had an interesting conversation about the Maasai people and Dominic's life growing up and his life story, which is fascinating stuff. Doesn't quite fit his urban wildlife conversation, so we split it off into a bonus part 2. We hope you enjoy it. As always, thanks for tuning in. Please rate us highly on your podcast listening app of choice. Please tell your friends about it. Please give us some feedback at urbanwildlifecast@gmail.com. Please find us on Twitter at urbwildlifecast. Please find us on Facebook. These are all great ways to get in touch with us. Let us know what you think and suggest some story ideas. I'd like to thank Patreon donor Sarah Clips, who just chipped into the Urban Wildlife Podcast. Thank you very much, Sarah. We're glad you like it so much. You want to help out.
All right. So, welcome to the Urban Wildlife Podcast, live from Kenya. This is your co-host, Tony Crosdale, with my lovely wife, Angie Fredrickson.
Hello.
And Dominic. And could you please tell me your full name?
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Tony. My name is Dominic Lopono Miranit. I'm a Kenyan from Samburu, which is a Maasai branch. And actually, entire of my life, I've been living with this wildlife, and this is what has led me to be a guide.
Yeah, so Dominic's been our guide. We did a group tour for our honeymoon, and I was at our briefing. I had my bird book open, and people said that you saw me reading a bird book and said Dominic would be, of the 3 vehicles, Dominic was the best birder, and he's a phenomenal birder, so that was fantastic. So we've been with Dominic for the whole group tour, which is 5 days, and then we stayed 2 days longer, and we used Dominic for 2 more days of guiding. So we went to the Lake Elementacha, also went to Masai Mara National Park for 2 days, and then we went back to Nairobi, went to Nairobi National Park, and then today we went to Lake Naivasha. And Lake Naivasha is your home, right?
Well, yes, this is my home for now, but originally I'm from northern Kenya, a part of Kenya called Samburu. So I had to move to this area because of education, and then it's closer to my workplace.
So you have an apartment in Nairobi, and you have a home in Lake Naivasha?
Yes, my family don't live in Nairobi, so I have a small house for myself, just in case I'm working in Nairobi, then I have somewhere to stay.
And on the way, so this is the Urban Wildlife Podcast, and we focus on wildlife that live in cities. And on the way to the Masai Mara, and we saw, actually it was on the way to Lake Elementacha, we saw a colony of yellow-billed storks and pigback pelicans in downtown Lake Naivasha.
Yeah.
So, could you talk about that colony, how big they are, how long they've been there, and why they're nesting in the city and not along the lakeshore?
Yes, Tony. Anyway, about the yellow-billed storks and the pigback pelicans, the breeding sites have been very, very hard to allocate, and here in Naivasha, we are just very glad to see them breeding. And what we have never known before is that they can share the same breeding site with pink pelicans. But it's actually a great pleasure to see them together. And it just happened that probably a few months old since they started breeding. So it's not something that has taken long to be there.
Is it how long again was it?
Probably 6 months.
Only 6 months. Wow.
Only 6 months. That's it's just a few days we were discussing about the breeding sites, but that's when some of us actually got to know that there are some breeding colonies at Naivasha town.
And for our listeners, when I say these are nesting in the city, I mean like they're nesting along the biggest road and trees above the road and like on a median in the road and right in downtown Navasha, like not like on the outskirts, like right in the city. And
how many people live in Naivasha again? 90,000?
Yes, Naivasha, because of the Afro culture, it has attracted a very, very huge population of people of all tribes. You know, Kenya has got about 44 tribes, and I think it's almost every tribe is represented here because of employment opportunities. So Naivasha itself has got a big, big population, and if I say 90, it's just a record of those who were counted during the election time, those who could vote. So the population is actually quite higher than 90,000. Yeah.
so when we were in Nairobi, we saw yellow-billed kites, pied crows. What other wildlife will you see right in the city? You know, not in the park, but in like downtown Nairobi. What kind of wildlife? You know, birds and mammals and what have you.
Well, apart from birds, actually, there are not many other animals. Although there are some cases of lions sneaking out of the park fence and just wander on the streets. But the Kenya Wildlife Service are always on alert. Just in case they get out of the fence, they come and dart them and return them back to the park. But hyenas also have been reported visiting in the compounds, but nothing much actually to report, except animals like genet cats. Genet cats can be seen anywhere near human habitation. So those ones you can see in the gardens, wandering here and there. Although now we have a high number of dogs, domesticated dogs, so those ones definitely push them out of visiting the villages and that thing.
I read an article about there was a train station in Nairobi, maybe the abandoned one. I forget which one it was. They found 3 leopards living there that were eating dogs. They were hunting dogs. Have you heard about that?
Pretty well, yeah. Nairobi itself is surrounded by big forests. So, and leopards are a little bit of canny cats. Yeah, they can be anywhere.
Yeah.
And for them, they can eat anything: dogs, cats, chicken. So they are opportunistic. So there are a lot of those cases of the leopards sneaking into the villages, steal the dogs, and run away.
Yeah. Wow. And what are some of the common birds you see in Nairobi?
The common, what we call urban species, is the speckled pigeons. We have the yellow-billed kites, pied crows, the marabou storks, which definitely are attracted to the city because of the garbage, and even they're breeding in Nairobi anyway. So those are the main species of birds. We have other raptors, but those ones cannot be confirmed because they are just like random visitors and they leave again.
Yeah, we saw a bachelor right outside the city.
Well, yes, but that was a little bit away from Nairobi city on the highland, the suburbs of Nairobi. That is more like wooded areas.
Yeah.
Yep.
There were still plenty of houses in around them when we saw it. So
Yep.
it was like suburbs, kind of suburban landscape.
The neighborhoods, yeah.
I guess we'll go quickly back to Lake Navasha. Why do you think they started nesting in the city rather than around the lake? We took a boat trip around the lake today, and we saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cormorants nesting and herons nesting, but we did not. I didn't see the storks and pelicans. And why do you think they're nesting in the city and not right on the lakeshore?
Well, Tony, that one still need to be done a research because it is our first time to see them breed there. So we don't know why they decided to pick that those particular trees, which are just above the road. And because if we discuss of disturbance along the lake shore, I think that where now they are breeding is more disturbed than the lake shore. So we still need to check what made them to choose that particular place, because the yellow-billed stork are not garbage eaters. So there must be something attracted them to that particular area.
Yeah,
because even you see the pelicans. Pelicans should be breeding by the lake, but they decided to join them there.
And it was very interesting too, because you could smell it smelled like fish. Like obviously they're coming and feeding their your chicks fish, you know,
Yep.
and like it smells so strongly of fish. They're not, you know. I mean, obviously, I don't think a pelican can eat anything but fish, you know. Like so, and a stork could maybe scavenge.
Yeah,
but,
you see,
but,
like Lake Naivasha is rich of fish, both endemic and both indigenous and exotic, because we have the crayfish, we have the common carp from Scotland, we have the black bass from Brazil. So we have all this sort of fish, and now, you know, they brought in another species of fish called mudfish. So I think the rich population of fish in the lake attracts all this. So probably this is why they found, you know, the best places to breed away from probably the cormorants, which are very noisy and all that. And but still near Naivasha to reach the lake, get food, and go back to the nest. So that's probably what I guess it is.
Now, yeah, we noticed, you know, Angie pointed this out. I'll pause this. Starting again. Angie noticed that there were a huge amount of cormorants, and it reminded her of the cormorants we have back home. And what'd you say, Angie? Your quote about the cormorants?
Do you mean their similarity to
the nesting? What you said about the nesting?
I don't really remember what Tony's asking me to say, but I basically, do you mean just how many there are?
Yeah, like you said, they seem like, are they taking over here like they are in America?
Oh yeah, I did notice. My mother lives in Dallas, and White Rock Lake is just totally overridden with cormorants. And I actually took a video for my mother, and I said, "Mom, it's just like Dallas. The cormorants just take over." And I did say, it seems like it's always that way when there's cormorants. They just become the really dominant bird wherever they are.
And that has been, yes, that's exactly what I wanted you to repeat.
Oh.
And I've noticed that in Philadelphia, in an island in between Philadelphia and New Jersey, and in a breeding colony of egrets and herons down in near Cape May, they got completely taken over by cormorants, and now it pushed all the herons down. And I'm wondering, is in Africa and in Kenya specifically, are you seeing cormorants living near people and taking over water bird colonies and pushing out the egrets and herons and storks? Is that something you're seeing?
Yep. You know, definitely, as you saw the flocks of cormorants. Cormorants breed in huge colonies, and they breed almost all year round. So they don't give chance to other birds to breed on the same trees. And you know, they also pose some competition on fishing, because you know, they are big fishing birds. So probably the noises they make, because they're really very noisy, can also push others away.
And which species of cormorant are these here?
We have two species of cormorants here, but the one that breeds along the lake is the greater white-necked cormorant, or greater cormorant. Yeah, the long-tailed cormorant, I've not seen any nesting down here, but I guess they do also breed in big colonies.
It's funny, talk about great cormorant. That bird lives from Australia all the way through Asia, Europe, Africa, and there's a population in eastern Canada down to Maine, and they winter in along our east coast, and I can actually see them in my city in the winter. And there's only probably a few thousand at the most great cormorants in North America at all. So it's actually like my city is known as a good spot to see this bird, which is funny because we just saw, you know, thousands of them today.
Wow, yeah. Also Nakuru, and there is another lake called Lake Oloidin, which is just west of Naivasha. That is another big nesting place. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about hippos. So we got.
What's it about hippos?
Well, there's hippos in Lake Naivasha, and the city comes very close to it, and the village comes right up to the lake.
Yeah.
Right. So, how far out? Do you consider that the city goes all the way to the lake, or do you consider it ending before the lake?
Well, as we mentioned about the population, definitely you understand there must be some encroachment
Right.
to the lake. And you saw the big greenhouses all around the lake. It's just like closing the gap, the grazing areas of the hippos. So at night they have to wander long distances away from the water to get proper grass. As you know, they're bulk eaters and they need a lot of grass. So they have to work their way out through between the fences and get out to graze and then back early in the morning.
And so and people are attacked by them. And when
Absolutely, yeah. We have a lot of cases, even in hotels. Like a few months ago, there was a Chinese tourist who was attacked by a hippo because they thought that they are friendly. So she went as close as less than a meter, tried to get the picture of the hippo grazing. So because hippos don't take pictures, they decided to take something else, to use something else. Yeah. Anyway, the client was killed, but it's our mistakes.
and you have a friend who lost his legs to a hippo attack, right?
Not once, many of them.
Many friends.
I know many people who have been attacked by hippo while they are fishing, and if they survive, they are lucky. But many of them do killed by hippos.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, you were Maasai,
Yes, I am.
and you took us to a Maasai village in the Maasai Mara.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there were birds in the village. Could you describe a typical Maasai village and talk about like what wildlife lives in the village?
Well, I don't think we have any animals living in the village, but
Including birds.
yes. Okay, we have some sparrows, we have some weavers, which are very common by the villages. But as you saw, the Maasai land is almost like unoccupied, and this is what has given the animals opportunity of living with the Maasai. And even if in history, the Maasai, we have never learned to kill animals. And anywhere you go in Kenya, the only place you find a good national park and a good national reserve, a conservancy, you name it, is the Maasai land. Because the Maasai live with animals, peacefully. We coexist together with animals. You saw the other day when we were driving, actually the wildebeest, zebras, and gazelles were barely meters away from the domestic cows. So even the Maasai can just walk. The only thing that has to keep away from, the Maasai have to stay away from is buffaloes, elephants, lions definitely will walk away from the Maasai. So it's only those dangerous animals. But still we live peacefully with them because we don't really attack them. Lions comes in, we tend to fight with the lions because of domestic animals. But if these lions can get an option of what to kill but not domestic animals, then we will live peacefully with them. But now we have some organization try to compensate all the damages caused by these predators. So definitely it will make a difference. Yeah.
And let's talk about the weavers. There's one called a village weaver.
Yes, the black-headed village weaver.
And is it called a village weaver because it lives in villages, or it builds its own houses together like a village?
It is either because they live in the villages, but also they make a village of their own.
And
many nests together.
Would you say that's the most common, like weavers are the most common urban bird? Because everywhere you go, every rest stop, in the garden of the hotel in Nairobi, everywhere we went, there's weavers.
It's not really the commonest because we have the specs weaver. Specs weaver is the commonest, and you always see them in hundreds on acacia trees or any other trees with thousands of nests all around the tree. So the specs weaver is the commonest. Yeah.
I think what else we covered quite a bit. Angie, do you want to weigh in on some of your favorite? Real quick, you said we were watching a Pride of Lions.
Yes.
And they perked up real quick, and you mentioned something that if they hear a Maasai bell, they'll run. And so, how are lions able to be? How does that happen? How do they know the bell? Why are they afraid? Like, You know, I mean, a lion that's
You know,
400 pounds and very powerful, and there's 10 of them. How are they afraid of people? Like, how do they get that kind of association?
Animals actually, Tony, have senses, and before the conservation, actually, Massa used to practice lion killing. So, and these animals have been living with this Maasai. They know when they hear the bell, that is the cows, and the cows has to be accompanied by the Maasai people. So they know definitely the only way is to hide. That's what we saw, because there were some noises and they decided to run in. But after realizing that it was not cows, you saw them coming out and start walking free out in the field. Yeah.
Have you seen yourself lions or leopards in, like, amongst houses or in a city or?
Oh yes, this is the life I lived.
Yeah.
And we have been running, running around with the lions and leopards taking goats. So it's something common to our villages.
Yeah.
Something very common.
And how about in any cities? Have you seen personally?
In the city, I've not seen myself, but just cases about it. Just hearing cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the most unusual thing you've seen in a city? Like a elephant or anything like that? Like
I haven't seen any elephants. So I don't really think I've ever seen anything unusual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when we were at a park that's very near and dear to Tony's heart yesterday, Nairobi National Park, because Tony loves urban parks, and that is just a phenomenal park where you literally can see the skyline of downtown Nairobi while you're looking at rhinoceros. And we were very lucky to see a lioness hunting at dusk, and she had a radio collar on.
Yes.
Now, is this because of the fact that even though they have fenced in the park, sometimes the lions escape? Is this the reason?
The radio is not purposely for that.
Okay.
You see, like in the park, they try to monitor the areas that lions covers, and how far they cover in the park. So it's not necessarily for them to get out of the park. Even those cases of lions sneaking out of the park, they are very rare cases.
Oh yeah. I'm sure.
It's probably once in 10 years.
Wow.
So that is purposely to study the lion's behavior within the park. And
That makes sense. So are they interested in some of the other animals? Do other animals in the park, like the black rhinos, for example, have radio tags?
Yes,
as well?
yes, they do have. But for them, they don't have a collar, but they put the tracking jeep in the horn.
Oh, there's like a GPS in the horn.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you said the park is fenced in, but tell us how big the park is.
The park is, the size of that park near the city is relatively very big, because it is 117 square kilometers. You can convert it into miles.
Yeah.
So that is actually the size of the park, and it's surrounded by people all around the park. So it's just the Mother Nature controlling the population, because the moment the population start growing, I don't know what we're gonna do with the park, because it may not be enough.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Now, how do they get genetic diversity, right? Like they're surrounded by people, they're fenced in, although I'm sure the fence has breaks in it, but I know it's in my park, it's hard enough to fence in a few acres from deer, let alone 117 square kilometers. But how do they ensure that there's genetic diversity? Like, do they bring in animals periodically from other parks and vice versa, so that they can to avoid interbreeding, or is that big enough to avoid that?
Okay, for now, the size of the park and the number of animals that are in is still good. They can still avoid interbreeding. But 117 and 17 square kilometers for the lions, I don't think it is big enough for the male lions to run away from or to live away from the natal pride. So I guess in the next few years to come, we will start seeing interbreeding between lions and probably genetical problems. You never know, but I've not seen anyone bringing in any animals. So it's just the natural animals that they found in there are still the one breeding, and that's it. Yeah.
And the Nairobi National Park is run by the Kenya Wildlife Service, or is it from the city?
It's run by the Kenya Wildlife Service.
It's a national park.
Yeah, where we went through, that was the headquarters of Kenya Wildlife Service. Yeah.
And there's we saw that there's the ivory and other poaching confiscated materials burning pits.
So that was our part 1 about urban wildlife in Kenya. We hope you listened to part 2. It's got more conversation about the Maasai people, their place in Kenya today, and Dominic's life story, which is fascinating stuff.